Captain Maya Rivera straightened her formal diplomatic uniform as the massive doors to the Galactic Council chamber swung open. This was humanity's moment. First contact had occurred just 6 months ago, and now Earth was being considered for probationary membership in the interstellar community. "Remember," Ambassador Chen whispered beside her, "no sudden movements. Maintain formal posture, and for the love of everything, follow the 14 greeting protocols exactly." Maya nodded, though her attention was partially diverted to the small environment-controlled container tucked inside her diplomatic case. Inside, Fluffy, her beloved Chilean rose-haired tarantula, shifted slightly. The medical exemption for her emotional support animal had been hard-won, but Maya's anxiety condition was well documented. Besides, the containment unit was triple-sealed. The human delegation proceeded down the central walkway. The council chamber stretched impossibly high, with seating arranged in ascending rings to accommodate over 300 species. Most were vaguely humanoid, though proportions and colors varied wildly. Others resembled nothing Earth's biologists had ever classified. High Counselor Zex Tellin, a tall blue-skinned being with 4 arms and compound eyes, began the formal introduction. "We welcome the representatives of Sol 3, called Earth by its inhabitants." Maya stepped forward precisely as practiced and opened her diplomatic case to retrieve the ceremonial gift, a data crystal containing Earth's music, art, and literature. That's when disaster struck. The container holding Fluffy had shifted during transport. As Maya opened the case, the lid popped free, and 8 fuzzy legs scrambled out in a blur of motion. What happened next would be replayed on galactic news feeds for decades. The Malaxian representative, a species resembling praying mantises, emitted a high-pitched shriek that shattered 2 light fixtures. The delegate from Proxima Centauri dove beneath the podium. 3 representatives of the Zithar collective simultaneously molted, shedding their exoskeletons in a fear response normally reserved for their death rituals. "Emergency containment procedures," shouted a security officer, voice trembling. "Class 9 Predator breach." Force fields snapped into place around different sections of the chamber. Warning klaxons blared. At least 17 species activated personal protection bubbles, while others fled through emergency exits. Maya stood bewildered as chaos erupted around her. Then she spotted Fluffy, calmly exploring the edge of the central platform. "Oh, there you are, sweetheart," she said, walking calmly through the pandemonium. She knelt and extended her hand. The tarantula, recognizing her, crawled onto her palm. "I'm so sorry for the confusion," Maya called out, raising her voice over the alarms. "This is just Fluffy, my emotional support animal. She's completely harmless." To demonstrate, Maya brought the tarantula closer, gently stroking its abdomen and planting a small kiss on its fuzzy head. "Who's my pretty girl? Did the big noises scare you? It's okay, Mama's got you." The chamber fell into stunned silence. The High Counselor's compound eyes had dilated to their maximum extent. "You willingly touch this, Predator?" Zex Talon asked, mandibles quivering. "She's a sweetie, honestly," Maya replied, smiling as Fluffy nestled comfortably in her hands. "Would anyone like to pet her? She's incredibly soft." The Regelian ambassador fainted. The translator devices around the room struggled to process the 16 simultaneous diplomatic emergency signals being broadcast. By evening, security footage of the incident had gone viral across the Galactic Information Network. 3 distinct religious cults formed overnight, each interpreting the human affection for a death spinner differently. One worshipped humans as fearless deities, another warned they were harbingers of doom, and the third began collecting Earth's adorable monsters as sacred relics. First contact had certainly made an impression, though not quite the one Earth's diplomats had planned. Dr. Kelthraz adjusted his ocular enhancers as he reviewed the experimental protocols one final time. The Galactic Science Directorate had fast-tracked this research after the Fluffy incident, as it was now officially classified in diplomatic records. "Are the human subjects prepared?" He asked his assistant, a floating gelatinous organism named Blip. "They are waiting in the anteroom, Doctor." Blip's translator device buzzed. "Though I must note they seem disturbingly cheerful." "Fascinating," Kelthraz murmured. "Even knowing they'll be exposed to potentially traumatic imagery doesn't trigger their fear response." The laboratory had been specially designed for this experiment. A central viewing chamber with comfortable seating faced a large display screen. Behind one-way observation glass, researchers from 17 species prepared to document reactions. Medical staff stood by with trauma protocols ready. 5 human representatives entered the chamber, led by Dr. James Okafor from Earth's Xenobiology Department. "We're ready whenever you are," Dr. Okafor called out with a friendly wave. "Though I'm not sure what all the precautions are for. Your message just said you wanted our reactions to some wildlife footage." Kelthraz signaled to begin the presentation. "We'll start with Category 1 stimuli," he instructed. The screen displayed a Mercurian acid slug, a creature whose touch dissolved most organic material instantly. Its undulating toxic body glistened with poisonous secretions. "Oh my goodness!" exclaimed Lieutenant Chen. "It's like a rainbow snail. Look at those colors." Dr. Okafor leaned forward. "Fascinating bioluminescence. I wonder if it's a defense mechanism or for attracting prey." Kelthraz's assistant Blip quivered in distress. The Vexlorian observer had to leave the room. "Category 3 stimuli," Kelthraz ordered, skipping ahead in mounting disbelief. The screen showed a void mantis, a 3-meter predator with razored limbs that hunted in the vacuum between stars. Its eyeless face featured multiple jawsets that could shred durasteel. "It has Disney eyes," Dr. Okafor remarked enthusiastically. "The poor thing looks chilly," added environmental specialist Rodriguez. "Those exoskeletal plates don't provide much insulation in space. It probably needs a sweater." 3 of the observing scientists requested emergency psychological counseling. "Proceed directly to maximum stimula," Kelthraz commanded, mandibles clicking in agitation. The final image showed a nightmare leviathan, a creature so terrifying that merely viewing archived footage required special dispensation from the Galactic Council. Its twisting, impossible form violated several laws of physics and was known to cause permanent psychological damage in 82% of sentient species. The humans' reactions were immediate and dramatic. "Awu," they collectively cooed. "It looks like a big puppy mixed with an octopus," Rodriguez squealed. "Can you imagine cuddling with it?" Chen sighed wistfully. "All those tentacles would give amazing hugs." Dr. Okafor pulled out a notepad. "Do you have any behavioral data? I'm wondering if they're pack creatures. Something that adorable probably has complex social structures." Behind the glass, the research team was in disarray. 2 scientists had fainted. The Corlaxian psychologist was rocking back and forth, repeating his species' prayer for the dead. Later that evening, Kelthraz presented his findings to an emergency session of the Galactic Security Council. "The evidence suggests one of 2 possibilities," he explained, displaying human brain scans alongside their terror response measurements. "Either humans evolved on a world so nightmarish that their brains developed a unique defense mechanism, converting terror into affection, or they are fundamentally incapable of recognizing existential threats." The High Counselor's appendages trembled. "Your recommendation, Doctor?" Kelthraz hesitated. "I'm torn between suggesting immediate quarantine for their own safety or recruiting them as the most effective psychological warfare operators in galactic history." In the adjoining room, Dr. Okafor scrolled through the test images on his datapad, wondering if any of these adorable critters would be available for adoption. He'd always wanted an exotic pet. Ambassador Vexcor of the Rikstar Empire adjusted his ceremonial battle harness as he waited for the human diplomatic corps to arrive. The trading station's neutral conference chamber had been carefully prepared. Treaty documents laid out, recording devices activated, and most importantly, the containment field generators tested and ready. "Are you certain this is wise, Excellency?" his aide whispered, mandibles clicking nervously. The humans have proven unpredictable. Precisely why we must establish dominance now, VexCorp replied. Their strange behavior has made other species weak. The Rikstar Empire will not cower before hairless primates who lack proper fear responses. The plan was simple. During negotiations, they would trigger an accidental release of their bioweapon, a shadow maw specially bred for intimidation displays. The creature would remain safely contained by invisible force fields, but its presence would demonstrate Rikstar power and ensure favorable trade terms. No species could maintain diplomatic composure when faced with a shadow maw. The chamber doors hissed open as the human delegation entered, led by Lieutenant Sophia Chen of Earth's Xenorelations Corps. Ambassador VexCorp, she greeted with a respectful bow. We're pleased to continue our discussions regarding access to the helium mining rights in the Proxima sector. Indeed, VexCorp's translator conveyed his words with appropriate gravitas. The Empire has prepared an initial proposal. The negotiations proceeded normally for exactly 17 minutes. Then, with practiced subtlety, VexCorp's aide activated the hidden chamber beneath the conference table. The floor irised open, and the containment pod rose into view. The shadow maw emerged, 7 meters of rippling muscle and shadow phase matter. Its 6 limbs ended in crystalline claws that could shred battleship hull plating. Its face, if such a term applied, was a void black mask with bioluminescent markings, evolved specifically to trigger terror responses in most sentient species. The Rikstar delegation stepped back, their rehearsed expressions of alarm convincing. Containment breach. VexCorp shouted, "Remain calm. Security protocols are in place." He awaited the human panic with satisfaction, which transformed into confusion as Lieutenant Chen's face lit up with undisguised delight. "Oh my God," she squealed, rushing toward the force field separating her from the creature. "It's like a big space kitty." The shadow maw, a predator that had evolved to inspire paralytic fear, visibly startled at the human's approach. It backed against the containment field, its threat display faltering. "Look at those bioluminescent patterns," Chen enthused, pressing her hands against the invisible barrier. "They're like little stars. And those eyes, they're so expressive." The security officers monitoring the chamber frantically checked their equipment. Something must be malfunctioning. No species approached a shadow maw willingly. "Can I touch it?" Chen asked, turning to a stunned VexCorp. "It looks so soft." "The containment field is impenetrable," he stammered, his careful script abandoned. Chen sighed disappointedly. "What a shame. I bet it would purr if you scratched behind those ridge spines." The shadow maw, seemingly responding to her tone, cautiously extended a limb toward the barrier separating them, its threatening posture softening into something almost curious. "See, it just wants attention." Chen cooed. "Who's a gorgeous cosmic shadow baby?" "You are." "Yes, you are." To the horror of the Rikstar delegation, the fearsome creature began emitting a low, rumbling sound, a vocalization no Rikstar had ever heard and lived to report. "It's purring," Chen exclaimed triumphantly. "I knew it." The diplomatic incident concluded with unprecedented trade concessions from the Rikstar Empire, granted in exchange for humanity taking custody of the compromised bioweapon. Ambassador VexCorp requested political asylum, convinced his government would execute him for the catastrophic failure. As for the shadow maw, renamed Mr. Whiskers in official Earth diplomatic records, it became Lieutenant Chen's constant companion, following her through the station like an oversized, dimension-bending house cat. Station security initially objected until they discovered the creature's effectiveness at deterring smugglers, who invariably surrendered rather than face what humans affectionately referred to as Sophia's adorable shadow puppy. Pak Lorne, a shrewd Quaxel entrepreneur with a knack for spotting business opportunities across the galaxy, stood before the grand opening of his newest venture. The massive illuminated sign above the entrance read, "Terror World." Witness the impossible. Below in smaller text. Observe humans interacting with actual death predators. Full medical team on standby. This will either make me the wealthiest Quaxel in 7 sectors, or get me executed for public endangerment. He muttered to his assistant. The concept was simple. Create a facility where the galaxy's most feared creatures were housed in specially designed habitats, then hire humans to interact with them, while spectators watched from behind quantum-reinforced barriers. The waiting list for tickets had already extended to 3 standard years. Inside the main viewing area, grandmother Eliza Johnson, a retired Earth veterinarian, sat on a floating platform within the Void Kraken nursery. 6 juvenile krakens, each already the size of an Earth elephant, swirled around her as she bottle-fed them a nutrient solution designed to replicate their natural food source. "There you go, sweetie," she cooed to the tentacled horror as it wrapped appendages gently around her arm. "Growing big and strong, aren't you?" Behind the barrier, hundreds of aliens from dozens of species watched in silent horror and fascination. Many recorded the scene, unable to believe what they were witnessing even as they saw it. A draconian diplomat fainted when Eliza kissed one of the creatures on what approximated its forehead. "The small one is my favorite," she explained to the stunned audience. "I call him Squiggles. He's a bit shy compared to his siblings." In another habitat, former marine biologist Carlos Mendez introduced visitors to what he called the misunderstood puppy dogs of the void. Shadowmaws, whose natural habitat was the darkness between galaxies and whose hunting technique involved inducing paralytic terror in their prey. Carlos had trained them to perform tricks for treats. "Roll over, Mr. Whiskers," he commanded cheerfully. The massive creature, whose mere silhouette had once caused mass evacuations on 3 planets, flopped onto its back, waving its 6 limbs playfully in the air. Captain Maya Rivera discovered Terror World 3 months after it opened. Her initial outrage quickly transformed into calculating opportunity. "This is exploitation," she told Pac Lorne during their first meeting. "But it could become something revolutionary." 6 weeks of negotiations later, the first Terran Wildlife Sanctuary opened, a facility where humans rehabilitated and cared for creatures feared or abandoned by other species. Unlike Terror World, the sanctuaries prioritized education and conservation, though the entertainment value remained undeniable. The cultural impact was immediate and far-reaching. Fluffification, the human tendency to transform terrifying things into cute, approachable entities, became a galactic phenomenon. Plush toys resembling apex predators became the hottest merchandise in the quadrant, though non-humans purchased them exclusively as props for horror-themed parties. Children's books from Earth featuring traditionally terrifying monsters were classified as psychological horror in non-human markets, while human bedtime stories were studied by xenopsychologists as potential exposure therapy for species with severe phobias. When the first human-designed monster care manual was published, complete with sections on proper tentacle grooming and supporting healthy fang development, it simultaneously became a bestseller in human markets and banned contraband in 17 conservative systems. On the observation deck of the flagship sanctuary, Maya watched as Eliza Johnson knitted colorful tentacle warmers for a grateful adolescent void kraken. "You know," Eliza remarked, "before I retired, I only worked with cats and dogs. Who knew I'd find my true calling with these absolute sweethearts?" The kraken nuzzled against her affectionately, producing a sound reminiscent of purring that sent nearby security guards diving for cover. Maya smiled. The galaxy was changing, one monster cuddle at a time. "Absolutely not, High Counselor," Zex Talon's voice echoed across the Galactic Council chamber. "We've lost 3 survey teams on Nexus 7. The last transmission showed." The counselor's compound eyes twitched involuntarily at the memory. Yet the resource-rich planet was too valuable to abandon. Nexus 7's rare mineral deposits were essential for quantum drive technology, and with supplies dwindling across the galaxy, desperation was setting in. The humans have demonstrated unusual capabilities, suggested Counselor to Plex of the Andorian Alliance. Perhaps they could succeed where others have failed. And so, against significant opposition, a human colony expedition was authorized for Nexus 7, led by the renowned xenobiologist Dr. James Okafor. The initial survey data had classified Nexus 7 as a death world, home to creatures the report described as evolutionary nightmares with excessive predatory adaptations. The last footage recovered showed massive multi-limbed creatures with too many eyes, armored exoskeletons, and jawsets that could presumably crush titanium. Dr. Okafor's team made planetfall on what would be known as First Contact Day in colony records. Security footage, later retrieved by a horrified Galactic Council Review Committee, documented the historic moment. "Would you look at that?" Dr. Okafor exclaimed as the first creature approached the landing site, a 12-limbed monstrosity resembling a cross between a wolf, a bear, and a millipede. Its multiple eyes swiveled independently, focusing on the humans with predatory intensity. "It's like a big fuzzy caterpillar dog." Lieutenant Rahul Patel stepped forward, ignoring safety protocols. "Here, buddy," he called, holding out his hand. "No need to be scared." The security officer watching the footage later required sedation. The creature, which could disembowel a Krax warrior in seconds, cautiously approached and then, impossibly, nuzzled against Patel's hand. "I'm calling them floofers," announced Dr. Sarah Miyazaki, the team's exobiologist, as she recorded preliminary observations. "Look at all that glorious fur." Within 6 weeks, the Nexus 7 colony was not merely surviving but thriving. Colonists had built their settlement in harmony with the native fauna, domesticating what they called the cutest alien puppies ever. Children rode to school on the backs of creatures that made hardened Krax warriors commit ritual suicide rather than face. Security footage from the colony became the most watched content in galactic history. Particularly popular was 7-year-old Lily Chen, teaching her pet, Fluffer, to play fetch with a ball nearly as large as she was. The creature, officially classified as a Class 9 extinction-level predator, bounded after the toy with what could only be described as enthusiastic joy. The scientific community was forced to reconsider fundamental assumptions when colony sensors recorded the dramatic rescue following a mining accident. A tunnel collapse trapped 3 engineers underground with no communication. Before rescue teams could deploy, a pack of floofers dug through solid rock to reach the humans, guided only by the distant sounds of their voices. "These aren't tamed animals," Dr. Okafor explained to the stunned Galactic Science Director during his presentation. "We've formed genuine emotional bonds with an intelligent species that simply communicates differently than we do." He displayed brain scans showing similar neurochemical responses in both humans and floofers during social interaction. They're empathic pack hunters who recognize us as part of their family groups. The Nexus 7 colony soon became famous for its unique exports. Therapeutic monster interaction sessions for aliens brave enough to participate, and specialty brushes designed for grooming multi-limbed predators. Their most popular product, plush toy floofers, sold billions of units despite, or perhaps because of, being marketed with different slogans to different species. For humans, cuddle your very own adorable space puppy. For non-humans, face your darkest fears in the safety of your own home. When questioned about the ongoing success of what galactic media had dubbed the Cuddlepocalypse, Colony Governor Helena Chen simply shrugged. "We just treated them like any creature deserves to be treated, with kindness. It's not our fault the rest of the galaxy thinks they're scary." The ancient sleep pod emerged from the darkness between stars, its organic metallic shell pulsing with awakening life. Across 17 sectors, automated warning systems blared to life. Emergency evacuation orders blanketed populated systems as historical archives were hurriedly consulted. "Void Kraken," whispered Admiral Vrax of the Galactic Defense Fleet, his scales paling to ash white. "The destroyers of civilizations." Historical records from a dozen extinct species told the same story. massive tentacled leviathans, whose mere presence drove sentient beings to madness, and whose hunting techniques included shattering planetary crusts to feed on molten core energies. The last Void Kraken incursion had ended the golden age of the Praxian Empire. Their most advanced weaponry had merely annoyed the creatures. The mining vessel _Lucky Break _ received the evacuation orders while harvesting helium-3 in the Cygnus Expanse. Captain Elena Vasquez read the emergency bulletin, then made a decision that would alter galactic history. "All hands to stations," she announced. "We're changing course to intercept the Void Kraken." Her executive officer stared in disbelief. "Captain, with respect, that's suicide." "Maybe," Vasquez replied, studying xenobiology files from Earth's database. "Or maybe it's just a big misunderstood space whale." The _Lucky Break _ approached the awakening Kraken, broadcasting what human scientists had extrapolated might be soothing frequencies based on Earth's marine mammal communications. The crew deployed enormous platforms loaded with synthesized food, designed to mimic the energy signatures the creature normally consumed. Live feeds captured engineer Raj Patel standing in the observation dome as the massive creature approached. A writhing mass of tentacles surrounding a core of impossible geometry that seemed to hurt the eyes that beheld it. "My grandfather was a classical violinist," Raj explained to the ship's documentation specialist, removing an antique wooden violin from its case. "He always said music was the universal language." As the Void Kraken drew near, casting a shadow larger than the ship itself, Raj began to play, a haunting melody that echoed through the ship's external speakers. "Who's a misunderstood cosmic horror?" he crooned between phrases. "You are." "Yes, you are." The Kraken paused. Tentacles that could crush battleships gently undulated in rhythm with the music. Then, impossibly, it began to respond, emitting subsonic rumbles that harmonized with the violin in complex counterpoint. 17 council species watched the broadcast in paralyzed terror. 3 religious orders declared the end times had arrived. The quantum prophet of Betelgeuse announced his retirement, noting reality had finally exceeded his capacity for prophecy. Admiral Vrax, preparing a last-ditch antimatter bombardment, received the transmission from the _Lucky Break _ with trembling claws. "We're calling her Melody," Captain Vasquez reported cheerfully. "She's responded positively to musical interaction and seems particularly fond of Vivaldi. We're establishing communication protocols now." Xenobiologist Dr. Lin Wei made the breakthrough discovery. It appears human affection behaviors trigger neurochemical responses in most predator species, she explained to the stunned Galactic Science Directorate. The release of oxytocin analogs effectively short-circuits aggressive instincts. In layman's terms, they like being talked to like puppies. Within months, human Kraken whisperers were deployed throughout affected systems. Special training facilities on Earth taught volunteers how to communicate with the ancient leviathans using a combination of music, baby talk, and what one trainer described as cosmic belly rubs. The Void Krakens, once the most feared entities in galactic memory, were reclassified as melodic space jellyfish in human databases. A popular children's holoprogram featured a friendly purple kraken named Squiggles, who helped smaller fish solve underwater mysteries. When asked how humans overcame their fear of such monstrous beings, Captain Vasquez seemed confused by the question. "Fear? Why would we fear them? They're basically big space puppies who play music. What's scary about that?" The Galactic Defense Fleet maintained its emergency readiness status for another 3 standard years, just in case. But the Krakens never attacked. They were too busy learning Beethoven's Fifth Symphony from their enthusiastic human friends. The scourge arrived without warning, writhing darkness between the stars that sensors could barely detect. Their vanguard struck 3 outlying colonies simultaneously, leaving no survivors but plenty of evidence of their methodology. The victims had died not from physical wounds but from pure, unfiltered terror. "They feed on fear," reported the grim-faced Arcturian science officer to the emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council. And they weaponize it. Our conventional defenses are useless. Footage from the attacks showed shadowy entities that seemed to shift between forms, each more horrifying than the last. Weapons powered by courage, the standard armament against psychological warfare, failed catastrophically when the scourge amplified and reflected the terror back at the wielders. 4 major systems fell within a standard week. Evacuation fleets clogged hyperspace lanes as the scourge methodically advanced toward the galactic core. There must be something that can stop them, High Counselor Zex Talon insisted, compound eyes darting nervously between tactical displays. Captain Maya Rivera, now Earth's senior ambassador, stood silently in the corner of the war room, watching the panic spread. She exchanged glances with Dr. James Okafor, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "There might be a way," Maya said quietly. All eyes turned to her. "They feed on fear," she continued. "What happens when they encounter creatures that inspire fear but aren't afraid themselves? What happens when they meet beings who respond to terror with affection?" Operation Cuttlebug launched 3 days later. The galaxy watched in awe as transport ships bearing Earth's distinctive blue and green markings sailed directly toward Scourge territory. Unlike conventional warships, these vessels carried no advanced weaponry, only specialized habitats and an improbable fighting force. The first engagement occurred near the Antares Nexus. Surveillance drones captured footage that would become the most viewed recording in galactic history. The cargo bay doors of Earth vessels opening to deploy what could only be described as a monster armada. Humans rode into battle on creatures that evolved specifically to inspire terror, each animal now decorated with colorful armor-bearing names like Sprinkles, Muffin, and Sir Fluffington the Terrible. Void krakens adorned with bioluminescent patterns carried platoons of human riders. Shadow moths, their natural stealth capabilities enhanced with adaptive camouflage tech, bounded alongside their human partners. Floofers from Nexus 7, their multiple limbs now fitted with specialized gear, carried communication equipment and medical supplies. Most remarkably, the human expressions showed no fear, only determination and affection for their monstrous companions. The Scourge attack formation faltered. Entities that had evolved to feed on terror encountered, for the first time, prey that responded with coos of delight and baby talk. "Who's a scary shadow monster?" "You are." "Yes, you are." Lieutenant Sophia Chen's voice echoed over comm channels as she directed her shadow maw mount toward the heart of the Scourge formation. "Aren't you just the cutest little existential horror? Aren't you?" The Scourge, confronted with humans who found them adorable rather than terrifying, experienced the equivalent of starvation. Their psychic feeding mechanisms, evolved to process fear, could not metabolize affection and delight. The decisive moment came when the human monster armada surrounded the Scourge mothership. Thousands of humans simultaneously broadcast what xenopsychologists would later classify as aggressive adoration, overwhelming the parasitic entities with expressions of how adorable and misunderstood they were. The Scourge retreat began within hours. By the end of the standard week, they had abandoned conquered territory and fled toward the galactic rim. In the aftermath, Admiral Vrax approached Maya Rivera with a question that had troubled the Defense Council. "How did you know it would work?" he asked. Maya smiled, reaching down to scratch behind the ear analog of a shadow maw that had served with distinction in the final battle. The creature, once the terror of 17 systems, leaned into her touch with a rumbling purr. "The universe taught almost every species that the best response to monsters is fear," she replied. "Humans learned something different. Sometimes, the best response to fear is love." 1 standard year after the defeat of the Scourge, the Galactic Council chamber had been redesigned. The once sterile diplomatic arena now featured adaptations for species previously excluded from interstellar politics, reinforced flooring for creatures of significant mass, specialized atmospheric bubbles for beings with exotic biochemistry, and most notably, enormous cushion platforms where entities once classified as monsters could comfortably rest. Captain Maya Rivera, now bearing the title of Earth's High Ambassador, approached the central podium. Fluffy, the tarantula whose diplomatic debut had started everything, perched contentedly on her shoulder. Beside her walked her personal assistant Squiggles, a juvenile void kraken whose tentacles had been tastefully adorned with ceremonial jewelry. The chamber fell silent as Maya prepared to address the most diverse assembly in galactic history. Distinguished representatives, she began. Today we ratify the Galactic Coexistence Initiative, recognizing that what we once feared as monsters are, in many cases, people too. Counselors from traditional species shifted uncomfortably as Maya displayed holographic data from Earth's xenobiology teams. Human scientists have developed translation matrices allowing direct communication with most species previously classified as predators or threats. What we've discovered has profound implications. The hologram showed humans in deep conversation with shadowmoths, floofers, and even the massive void krakens. These beings possess complex societies, cultural traditions, and in many cases, technological understanding that rivals our own. Their methods of communication simply didn't register within conventional translation parameters. Maya's expression grew solemn. For eons, many species lived in isolation, feared by others who couldn't understand them. The tragedy isn't that they were monsters, it's that we never truly saw them. At this, Squiggles moved forward, tentacles gracefully manipulating the translation device Maya had designed. To the astonishment of the council, the kraken began to speak in perfect galactic standard. For countless cycles, squiggles of melodic voice resonated through the chamber. My kind wandered the darkness between stars, attempting to communicate with other sentient beings. But all we encountered fled in terror or attacked in panic. The loneliness of a species that cannot be heard is a pain beyond description. The chamber remained utterly silent as Squiggles continued. The humans were the first to listen instead of fear, the first to perceive the music in our movements, the first to reach out with curiosity instead of weapons. Tears glistened in Maya's eyes as she placed a hand gently on one of Squiggles's tentacles. Today, she continued, we formally recognize 15 formerly feared species as full members of the galactic community. This isn't merely symbolic. It's a fundamental restructuring of how we define personhood. As if on cue, the chamber doors opened. Representatives from species once considered nightmares entered, each accompanied by their human interpreters. A massive shadow moth padded alongside Dr. James Okafor. 3 floofers bounded in with Lieutenant Sophia Chen. Even a mature acid slug, its rainbow bioluminescence, dimmed to comfortable levels, glided in beside environmental specialist Rodriguez. The vote for the initiative was unanimous, though observers noted several traditional counselors trembled visibly throughout the proceedings. 6 months later, the galaxy's most popular entertainment program became Misunderstood Monsters, where humans introduced their companions to an increasingly curious interstellar audience. Educational exchange programs flourished as species learned to overcome millennia of instinctual fear responses. When interviewed about humanity's unique role in this transformation, Maya simply smiled. We didn't do anything special. We just treated them the way anything deserves to be treated, with kindness and curiosity instead of fear. She scratched behind Fluffy's fuzzy head, the once terrifying spider contentedly closing its multiple eyes in pleasure. Besides, how could anyone look at this face and see anything but adorable? Across the galaxy, billions of beings were learning to do exactly that.